This episode is brought to you by our friends at Brooks Blooms, your all-in-one landscaping solution.
Brooks Bloom's three-step landscaping experience offers a seamless journey from design to construction and ongoing care, ensuring your outdoor space thrives year-round.
Visit brooksblooms.com today to embark on your landscaping journey, where every step is a step towards a vibrant and beautiful outdoor entertaining space. All right, Joshy boy, another very, very, very special guest who we were both fortunate enough to play with. I got to play with him for one season in his first year up in Sydney, and you're obviously a premiership teammate of his. And what a how would you say it? What a bit of a crazy career, if you want to call it. He's obviously came back to Melbourne and wanted to be around family, and then he has arguably one of the coolest rides to winning a premiership and one of the greatest moments that I'll ever be able to watch back. And the commentary of Brian Taylor, that will always ring in my mind, of when our great guest Tom Boyd kicked that goal from 60 was one of the best things I've ever seen. We've got Tom Boyd on, who I have so much admiration and respect for. And I'm so glad you can join us on the podcast, and very thankful you can join us, Tommy.
What do you mean, mate? You obviously don't have that much respect. It wasn't 60. Keep going.
How far was it? 65?
By the time I'm 30 in 4 months, it'll be half back. Centre half back, I kicked it from.
Hey, Josh, you were about, 10 metres away from him, so you can actually tell us how far was it?
Yeah, no, I reckon it was 70 odd metres. And I was actually calling for a handball, mate. So I jumped on his back.
Didn't hear anything, mate. Could have been on the moon.
Yeah. No, but it was one of the best kicks.
And you didn't think about the tackle that Dale Morris laid, where you probably could have given it back to him to slow the game up. You thought, nope, I'm picking this up and I'm kicking this from 75.
Adam, if I had heard that it was a free kick, I would not have taken any advantage, because Luke Beveridge made it very clear that if you are above 6'2", you do not play on. After learning that the hard way from Tommy Campbell and Will Minson.
Yes. Well, let me tell you, it hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. No. He's still telling blokes that are over 6'2" not to take advantage and play on, mate, unless they've got a booming leg like you did. I have so many great memories of our one and only season we spent together, and it was a challenging year for you. But I mean, outside of the footy stuff, how you going, mate? How's life? I believe you're in Perth at the moment.
I'm in Perth, mate. Yeah, I'm working over here. I have a couple of major memories from our time in Greater Western Sydney. You said it was a challenging year for me, mate. We finished on the bottom. I don't know what you were doing, having a good time, were you? Running around, doing extra handballs on your day off, just having a great old time. Jesus.
Hey, we won that one game. We won that one game against Melbourne, round 19
and the Bulldogs.
Oh, yeah,
and to this day, right, Josh, yes. If you haven't seen the footage of this game, right, we are equal with the Bulldogs in Daniel Jow and Syracuse's last game. All gets wins. Yes. I go up, great contest. Handball it to Devon Smith, I believe. And Devon Smith runs down from the wing, right? And honestly, if he can still hear out of his right ear, I will be surprised, because every step of the way, Adam Treloar screamed at him to handball. Every step, for about 50 metres. So if this producer knows how to cut clips, find that clip. It is the most funny footage about it to see. And he is visibly upset when Devon Smith kicks that goal. I just want everyone to know.
Oh, that is so good. He will find that.
You talk about long-distance goals. Dev Smith kicked that from about 60.
No,
I reckon.
50. 50 by the time he got there, mate. Jesus. He just survived the ear bashing you were giving him. The other thing I remember from that time, Adam, is that one, you almost broke me because you did so much extra touch on your day off that it was unhealthy.
It was unhealthy. It was unhealthy.
But two, we ate at that thigh joint so much that I couldn't get the taste of Thai basil out of my mouth for 6 or 7 years after I left.
When you got to when you got to the Bulldogs, how are your skin folds after going to that tie joint we used to go to every week?
Oh, it was the appendix that came out and the lack of training that had contributed predominantly to that. But the short answer was no good, mate, just to be honest. I remember I came back, right? This is a true story, right? I get traded in Indonesia. Going this year, it's all going well. Got this big contract. I think there's going to be paparazzi at the airport. No paparazzi. No one gives a shit about Tom. No one cares. And then I go back home, and of course, after you sign a big contract, interested if you boys have had this experience, people go, you know what, Tom? I've got this great business idea for you. Right? Absolutely. My mates, these guys that I knew, mate, they were trying to sell me a coaching program. I'm like, you don't reckon there's enough coaches in the world? You two are no good at footy. What are you going to teach them? Anyway, I'm sitting there in this meeting, and my back starts just killing me. Long story short, I go home, I'm like sweating, can't sleep the whole night, having the worst back spasm of my life. I have to do radio at 7 a.m. with JB and Billy, and I do this interview sleepless. And I don't know if it was the sleeplessness or the fact that they weren't that thrilled that I was getting paid $7 million. But anyway, have fun. Then I go back to bed, right? And I wake up, and Mum's just gotten home from work. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Been asleep for 8 hours. Feeling horrendous. And Mum takes me to the doctors. Long story short, I get I've got appendicitis. And Jakey Landsberger comes on the scene. He's like, I'm at Epworth, and he goes, I've got this surgeon coming in, and he says, you're not going to get done at Epworth early enough. We're going to move hospitals. And this is what I knew I made it, boys. This is what I knew, right? They moved me Melbourne Private, which was shut. There was no one there. It was middle of the night. They opened the hospital for me. Yeah, turn the lights on. Hey, happy pinata. Tom's here to get his appendix out. He brings his whole team in with about 10 people. And
wow.
2 a.m, whatever, he wakes me up and he goes, mate, 15 more minutes, that thing would have burst. You would have had sepsis. You would have died or whatever. Not actually, but I think he was trying to pump his own tires. Nice guy. Anyway, next morning in the paper, Australia's most expensive appendix has been removed.
Oh, no.
In the Age.
What the heck? Are you actually, that's legit, right?
It's a true story,
what the headline said.
Yeah.
Is that before, exactly. Was that before you even stepped into the footy club?
Yeah. Yeah, like 3 weeks or something. We didn't have a coach, mate. We didn't even have a coach. We just had Justin Cordy, and he was just telling me how fat I was.
That is the best story I've ever heard. And I'll tell you what I love about it is I love how you can joke about things that would probably be a little bit traumatic. Like you can sit back and be, oh, this happened and this happened, and the most expensive friggin' appendix is about to burst. I'd love how you can joke about it and make sense of it,
mate. What other choice do I have at this rate? It's
I just think it speaks volumes of you, mate. I really do.
Thank you. It is funny me watching the footy, the footy these days and seeing those two knuckleheads from Noble Park running around, one for Collingwood and one for, I know he was from Western Jets, was he?
He was from Western Jets.
Austin Elliott, these two blokes are inseparable. Yes. They were great friends of mine. I always said that Adam was always one of the best ones up there. It was an interesting period of time. I'll tell you what, there's a few people that weren't. Let's say that. I'm not trying to get anyone in trouble here.
We can't ask you that. We'll save that. We'll save that for when we've all retired, and we'll do a reveal all, because that'll be a great.
Mate, I ran into Adam Tomlinson the other day, right? Who I hadn't seen in years. Well, I'd seen once, sorry, because he's at North, and my sister just got drafted to North. Go Tessa, let's go AFLW superstar.
Mm-hmm.
And we were laughing because, mate, we're just kids. We were just kids. Like, you've got kids of your own, Adam. I've got kids of my own. Josh, I don't know what you're mucking around doing. And, it's a different world. We're all just trying to figure it all out. And so much has changed since then. But, maybe if we do ads and dunks after dark, we'll tell all the secrets.
We'll do it one day.
I guess that. Sorry, Josh. I keep asking the questions, mate. I'll do it every week.
Go for it, mate. You're all good.
I actually want to ask you something there then, Tommy. Is there, like, if you were, right, to, like, say you were the boss of Tassie, right? And you were to start up the team, you've been a part of now you're part of the foundation club, obviously in our third year of existence, wasn't it? Yeah, third year. Like, what is it that you would necessarily change? Like, whether it's something big, whether it's something small, like, is there things that you would have changed from your experiences?
Yep. Yeah. So there's a few things. Simplest one to say is that, and this is, I need to be 100% clear here. This is not a reflection of the lack of capability in the coaches that we had. But I personally would get senior assistant coaches, because at the Giants at the time, we had Dean Brogan first ever coach, James McDonald, Luke Power, Chad Corns. Who else do we have? That it?
They were the main ones. Yep.
Yeah. So they've all just come. Like, do you know how big a jump it is to go from being a senior player to being it's such a big ask. And I think to the best assistants that I've had over the years, mate, they just don't stop ever from a effort point of view, from a coding, from a connection and a mentoring and a social. It's a 100-hour-a-week job. So you can't expect them to make that jump 1 year. So that's what I'd definitely do that. Number two is I would do what the Giants tried to do, which is sort of trade away and spread out the ages as much as possible. But the reason I would do that, and again, I've been very open about this, you don't have to agree or disagree, Ads, but my perspective on our time at the Giants was we had too many players who were high picks, who were thrown all together, and they basically built a bullpen for just figure it out. And what ended up happening was us kids, very young men, were all insecure and, impatient. There was a level of trying to make life harder for other people so that your job would be easier. That's my recollection. Might be wrong, might be right, but I wouldn't do that because it's not avoidable in that scenario when you have 20 first-round picks. It's just not possible, in my opinion. And then I think the third thing is you go really, really hard on, and GWS had this challenge because of the demographics and the AFL focus at the time, because frankly, no one knew who we were. I mean, I could be very bad at it. I signed more Canterbury Bulldogs balls than I signed Giants balls in that year. I swear to God.
I agree.
They were just handing me rugby balls, and they all have that terrible synthetic, the bubbles on it.
Yeah, you can't sign. Yeah.
Hey, look at us. That's been told. AFL place. Signing footies is Josh Hayes.
This is great. This is great.
But you're in Tassie. You're in a footy state, right? And they're footy is their bread and butter.
Yeah.
And I think I'd go heavy on, we got to build a Geelong-style community here. That's the only way to make that place win, right? Which is that this is essentially Geelong, but in Tasmania.
Yep.
So that's my theory. I don't know.
I like
Bring
it.
me on board, boys.
So, yeah, I was going to say, I'll sign you up. They might as well reach out, mate, and get you down there.
They might not need any help soon, Josh. I don't know if you've read the news.
I have read the news.
Yeah, wow.
Hopefully that gets up.
No, I hope it gets up. Footy for Tassie is good.
So I agree.
Great state, great place. And it
very
has
passionate fans.
A dying football culture, particularly on the West Coast. There's been some good books written about it in recent times.
Yeah, no, we were down there a few weeks ago, and Hobart was pretty special. It was nice. It was actually my first time down there, so it was good to see. Hey, Tommy, I want you to talk about, mate, I know you've talked a lot about footy already, but what's something that you learnt from your time in footy? Like, you've been through quite a bit, obviously different clubs, different moments, big games. What are the few things that mentally you learn along your journey? Physically, obviously your body was, it was tough times with your back and that kind of thing. Like, what's something that you took away from the game that you really look back on now and, wish you hadn't known potentially coming into it?
Yeah, I think there's so there's two things. One, which is a bit difficult to retroactively place into a career. You kind of just got to go through some stuff. But the second, I think, is a much more practical tip. So, because I get asked, obviously, when I do a lot of this public speaking work across the country about, hey, my son, my cousin, whatever. And I'll start with that one, which is, how am I going to become an AFL footballer? And my advice is pretty simple. Learn how to run really, really good. If you can run, you're way ahead of the curve, right? You can deal with all of the strength and so on and so forth. But if you have a huge aerobic base, I think back to some of our teammates, Josh, I think about Hunts, right? Lockie Hunter had such a big engine. It didn't really matter about anything else, right? He could at least get himself to being clear of mind and clear of body because he was so fit. And there was people, you look at the longevity of the likes of our teammates, as in Josh Kelly. Like, he just doesn't miss any footy because he's so much fitter than everyone else. He sort of plays or can play in a way at sort of 90% aerobically every game, rather than, at the very least in my experience, I don't know about you two boys because I know you're both very fit. It was like 110% every game. Right? So what I should have done, frankly, and this is one of the regret's probably a strong word, but one of the things that I now know that I wish I'd done is I should have basically said, hey, Craig Mottram, let me give you 10 grand and just train me for the last 4 weeks. That's really what I should have done because that's what I needed. But I didn't know this stuff at the time.
Of course.
And I felt like I needed the mental break more than anything, which I definitely did. But in the seasons that I was most successful, I kind of found a way to do both. And whilst it wasn't much of a break, the gap between 15 and 16, it was just like, there was so much time to train. I nailed the off season. I did the surf trip. I got really lean, got really fit, came back, did the run. And I was just in a good place physically. So that's the thing that I'll do. So number one that I give advice is learn how to run, and you got to learn how to kick. If you can't kick, mate, it's game over. It's too hard. Mm-hmm. And both feet would be ideal, right, in today's game. I'm not preaching the converted here. But the thing that I did learn that you don't really get to teach is, Matt, I used to ride the bumps and waves and bruises of every single comment that was said to me, not literal comment on social media, just what people thought. Because I couldn't separate for the life of me the difference between the critiques of who I was as a footballer versus who I was as a person. I could not separate the two. And there's a good reason for that in some cases, but there's also what I've learned is I don't really care what people think anymore. I really don't. And I don't mean that in a callous way because I love working with people. I work with tens of thousands of people every single year across the speaking work, the technology company ever performed that I work with, the media. I meet more people arguably than just about anyone else, probably except for you boys. So I love people and I love engaging with them, but I don't care what they really think about me unless they know me. And then they can give me feedback rather than criticism. But one of the things that happens in today's media landscape, right, and I just wrote a piece about this today, which I'll put out in the next week or so, is there is a cohort of the media who deliberately confuse intent with poor execution, right? So let me take it back to a personal example. So this is not reflective of you guys. I remember being asked the question at one stage, so why did you kick the ball to the opposition? Or why did you make this error? You've probably both been asked that. Why did you? Well, the answer is, I didn't mean to, mate.
Yeah, of course.
But the implied meaning of that question is you chose to do this, right? And there's even worse versions, like why did you miss this tackle? You're too soft, you don't care. There's this selfish, soft, all of the worst words you could be criticized as a footballer, scared, duck your head, all that stuff, right?
Yep.
There is a cohort in the media at the moment who use that exact pressure point to cherry pick conversations around certain players, and they very clearly make it either at the very least correlated, but more intentionally causated, that the cause of these issues is that the player is too selfish, too scared, doesn't care, doesn't try hard enough, right? Which I have a real issue with because that's not true. And the problem with the media cycle is for people in the media, it's 48 hours of power, right? like the 48-hour news cycle. Everything goes in 2 days. Well, the problem with that is, having been at a few of these myself, I can speak from experience, it might be 48 hours for the people in the media, but it's a lifetime.
Absolutely.
If you black out the media enough and you get enough reach, then it is what people think about you and you live that reputation down forever. So that's my major issue. But that is at its core the issue that I have with footy. People told me I was a bad person because I was paid a lot of money, of which I would love to see all of them go through the same negotiations I did and make a different choice.
Yeah,
it would happen. But number two, because I could never live up to those standards, and I couldn't handle that bit. That bit was the really difficult part for me. Whereas now I know what I'm doing is positive, and I know what I'm doing is the right thing. And I'm older, and I've got a 3-year-old, so go find someone else.
Yeah, mate, that is a tremendous answer. And I'm hanging on to every word you're saying, mate. I know Josh is probably the same. Because I can relate. I can wholeheartedly relate. And I felt I could think back to probably my second year in the system, which would have been your first year was my third year. So it was just before you got there. And that was probably the first time I ever really thought about everything you're saying. So, what people are saying about me was affecting my ability to think of myself as a person, was affecting whether I regarded myself as a good person purely because I wasn't hitting the target on a weekend, or largely it's always around betting and super coach and all this stuff where you're not performing at a standard that they want you to perform at. So I guess my question is to you, Tommy, when was your first, when can you recall in your mind your first thought around mental health in terms of, oh, wow, I'm actually not right here. Like I've got some stuff going on.
Yeah. So I think it's important to be clear because I actually don't I don't know that it actually starts when you have that thought, because I think by that stage you're going, there's been 6 or 7 times and 8 times and 10 times. So actually, maybe this isn't just a bad night's sleep, right? But I remember, and look, I'll be really interested to hear your perspective because we haven't spoken about this, but there was a period of time in the sort of earlier stages of my time at the Giants. So 4 or 5 rounds into the first season. So I played my first game. Let's just say being a forward at the Giants at that stage was tough. Right?
It was tough.
Because Paddy Dangerfield had 24 touches and 3 goals at halftime at the Adelaide Oval in my first ever game. So I don't know what Adam was doing, Josh.
Round
Probably
5.
not.
Round 5.
Didn't have an arm across, maybe. You know what I mean?
Kicked the centre bounce goal on me too, Tommy. So thanks.
Oh,
I do remember that game.
If I'm not mistaken, that was the first game back at Adelaide Oval, and I have never, ever appreciated the expanded vocabulary of insults that the lovely people of South Australia have under their belt. Anyway, then I play against Gold Coast. They somehow give me another game after I didn't get a touch, and I think in part me they're like, a bit stiff to play your first game in that conditions. Anyway, and then about 10 minutes in, I actually get rid of my opponent. For the first time, I think I'm going to mark and kick a goal. And I go to take a sort of reaching out chest mark, and Jared Harbour runs through my arm, dislocates my shoulder. Right? This is the same shoulder I had surgery with, either with you, Dunks, or the same year. Right? You had it earlier in the year. Anyway, my point being is then I was on the sidelines. So I don't even know if I missed a game because they're like, oh, so you need surgery, but maybe we'll do it later. And I didn't. That was new to me. We hadn't been through that yet. That's your first coming to Jesus moment in the AFL. Your body's not that important. And anyway, I start progressing through the year, and I start just really struggling sleeping. I'm exhausted because we're traveling to Canberra on the bus in the middle of the night for no reason. We could go through that too. I just can't sleep. I'm thinking about the game, or I'm thinking about training, or whatever else is going on in my life. And that occurred through preseason as well. I've got to tell this story. So there was a moment in preseason. Well, let's just say this didn't land that well, Josh. You know, you have some ideas like, hey, let's go do this. No, didn't land this one. Right? So, yes. Number 1 pick, walk in, 6'7", tall, dark, and handsome. A bit like yourself. And let's just say, I've always been a confident person, but I was confident and 18. So the worst of all parties here. Anyway, we got it through the first little stage of the club. And because I was number 1 pick and I had a great management company, I signed a Gatorade deal.
That's right.
How many Gatorade deals you boys signed? 0 would be my guess.
None.
Now, alongside me in this Gatorade deal,
I remember this. Yeah.
Scott Pendlebury.
Yep.
Average to decent player. Gary Ablett Jr.
Slightly
better. And Lance Franklin, who I would say is the greatest player of all time. So it was the 4 of us, very similar career trajectories at this stage. Anyway, not a huge deal. Sort of everyone's, it's all good. Then at some stage, Gatorade, in their wisdom, decide to send about 1,000 bottles of Tom Boyd red Gatorade to the club in preseason. And when you talk about it going down like a lead balloon, Josh, it just didn't go down. So I'm like, I didn't send the Gatorade, but let's just say there was a few people, which again, we won't. Not very happy with it. My point being, to get back to your question, my point being is like things like that just stuck on my mind. I felt really, really uncomfortable. And so there was these periods where I was so tired. All I wanted to do, I was like, I'm so sick, frankly, of dealing with the same people all day, every day. Like it was so incestuous up there at that stage, right? We were living in a television show, which was called The Truman Show, in this white picket fence neighborhood with all the retirees, a huge Asian population, and Giants people. That was it, right? And mate, like, it's just anyway.
Bright orange shirts walking around. Yeah.
Oh, and Josh, you just see everyone in the supermarket. That we had our own supermarket, so you just run into each other like, oh, good to see you, man. Just left work. Good to catch up. Anyway, so in my response,
I didn't even know this happened.
Mate, this is like the wildest thing that anyone's ever done. And he did it for like 5 years. Think about that. He's lucky to survive, really. Anyway, I get to this stage where I'm like, I'm not enjoying it that much, frankly. I'm really struggling to sleep and I'm starting to feel anxious all the time, which I didn't really know what it was. And so my response to that is great. Well, on my days off, which is all logical, right? On my days off, I'm like, I just got to get away. It's got to get on like a bit of time on my own just to decompress and so on and so forth. And what I do was I would basically drive up to Manly or to the coast and I'd surf or it's beautiful up there. I really enjoyed being up there. I'd swim, whatever, just get some time away. And it was sort of perceived at the time like, Tom's too good for us. I'm like, I don't understand how we got to hop, skip, and a jump from that. But because I didn't want to do all the extra social stuff on the days off. I'm like, I just want to, can we just be normal people here? And that was a stage where I was like, no matter what I do, this is sort of not working out. And then coincidentally, I got the call from my dad being like, hey, you've got basically a contract offer. Do you want to consider coming back to Victoria? So it was a really challenging time mentally. But then much like I did multiple times in my life, I had this distraction of, hey, yeah, but if I get this deal done, it'll be fine. Then I go through the challenges I faced off the field in 15 and 16, particularly around game day. Then I go, oh, but I just want a premiership. It's all good. Then I go, through the stuff in 2017. And that's really I learned that lesson for the last time, I hope, in my life, that no matter what's going on in your life, what issues you have, the magical thing you put on the horizon is not going to fix it, right? And the examples I use typically are, and everyone would have heard this. I'll use it in your context because you're a little bit different to most. If you say, we've just got to get to the end of the year, right? We've just got to get to the off season. In the real world, no offense, people go, we've just got to get to Christmas. Or I just got to finish this next project. I've just got to get through this wedding, got to get through a mortgage, whatever it is. Yep. And everyone goes, when that happens, I will do this. I will fix that. And just like the broken fence outside or the downpipe you got to fix or the issue with your shower or whatever it is, it's the same with your mental health and your physical health. You never do it. The only good time to start is today, and the only better time is yesterday. Do you like that? It's a good cliche, that one.
I do.
Good way to round it out.
That's it. That's I thought you still, mate. I thought you were still going. I thought you were still going, mate. I'm just hanging on to every word you're saying, Tommy. Like,
I do this for a living, boys.
You're going to keep going, mate. It's unreal.
You guys are only part-timers. This is my domain,
Oh, we are part-timers, aren't we, Joshy?
Oh, mate, I must say it's been an absolute, it's been very good, but also amusing for me because Adzi hasn't told me half these stories, so I'm loving the shit you're hanging on him too.
Can I ask Josh a personal question of you? Because we haven't spoken in a while either. So when you're negotiating your deal, right, to go from the Bulldogs to Brisbane, is there like a clause on how many days of sunshine you need to get, like for your tanning? Or is that like a performance incentive? Like if you get this many kicks, then you get to tan more. How does that work?
Yeah. Well, mate, at the moment it's currently 20 degrees during the day and blue skies and sunny. So you don't really need a tan. You just go outside and train and you're tanning. So I'm loving it.
Oh, must be tough.
Well, one of the most genetically gifted human beings you'll ever meet, Josh Dunkley. He's got to thank his mum and dad for that. He's a beautiful man, aren't you, mate?
No.
I think it just comes from the Yarram water. You're Morwell? Yes. Where are you from? Yarram?
Yarram.
Yeah. There's that great Mitre 10 store down there,
There is a Mitre 10 store down there.
All parts of the world, don't you? You told me. How do you
go
know
everywhere.
that?
Well, there's a really funny name, like the family name of all of the Mitre 10s and stuff down there.
Did you know that, Josh?
No.
Or maybe it's the other side. I think it's that side. Look it up. But anyway,
well,
great part of the world. Beautiful hill. Did you drive down from Morwell or whatever down to Yarra?
Yep. From Traralgon, mate.
True story, Josh. I might have met some of your relatives. I actually did a gig down for the sawmillers in Yarra at one stage. You know?
Oh yeah, you probably did, mate. Did you like it down there? Ever?
Oh,
think you
beautiful.
moved down
God's
there, or?
country. God's country. Good cows, good dairy.
That's great. Oh, it's great. Well, let's get back on track here. But, Tommy, I just wanted to ask you too about Spud's game, mate. I saw that you obviously did the talk pre-game, and very powerful, very like motivating to speak out. And I thought what you did was incredible. How did you find that experience? Is it it's obviously something you're passionate about, so it was easy to talk about. But what was it like in that moment?
Well, maybe by way of background for those who are listening, because this is a ginormous show, who don't know what I do. So since I finished, don't you smile, boys? That was genuine. I do about 100 speaking events a year, right? So I do a range of businesses, corporates, footy clubs, charities, community groups, etc., etc. So to say speaking in public is not exactly daunting for me would be a slight understatement. I love it. I really quite enjoy it. And a bit like we're having fun on this thing, I do the same when I have my events, because at the end of the day, my philosophy on speaking about mental health in any forum is there's sort of two primary factors you're looking for. One, you need to connect with the audience. Most important thing, because you need to make sure that they understand you're talking to them, not at them. Yeah. Really, really important. It's a big mistake in my experience that speakers make. They get their speech, they stand behind a lectern, and they talk at people. Right? Mm-hmm. Then you've got to rely on like how crystal clear you are and how fancy your hand gestures are for that to actually land. If you talk to people and you understand who they are, it's much, much easier to do that. That's number one. The second thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that the message that you have is one that you genuinely believe in and that you can stand behind. Because if you can't, I'm going to ask you a question at some stage and it won't make any sense. So when I sort of progressed into preparation for Spud's game, I got asked only probably 10 days before to do the game. I don't exactly know why there was such short time frames beforehand. I think I know, but sort of irrelevant. But I said yes straight away. I was like, yeah, this is awesome. Because in the competitive way that we all have some streak of, given that, you know, to varying degrees, obviously we made it to professional sport. I'm like, how many people can actually do this and stand up there in front of what was 65,000 at the G? And the answer is very, very few. Absolutely. So I was really clear that I needed to know more about what the environment would be rather than just so I understand the message and I understand football people better than any other people, right? I understand them. I've grown up around them. This is who I am as a person. But what I found was that I spoke to a friend of mine, Pete Laser, who's a fantastic MC who does a boatload of work and has done a lot of work at the G. I said, anything I need to know? He goes, yep, don't listen to yourself. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, you're not going to be able to hear a single thing that you're saying as it exits your mouth. Not a single thing. I'm like, great. How do I prepare for that? And so what I did was the night before, I was working in Elmore, which is up near Echuca, for WorkSafe in the ambassadorship that I have. And on the way home in this 2.5 hour drive, I put the radio right up and I practiced over the radio what I was going to say, because I was like, how else can I create this environment? So I did that. But one of the funny things that I didn't consider was that whilst I'm rolling this speech out, which I thought was really important to do without notes, so I wanted to get it as crystal clear. I made a couple of tiny little hiccups, but predominantly was good. I didn't think about the players who were out there who couldn't hear anything either. So at the end, I'm trying to work up to, let's go and play some football. And they're all like looking around like, you know, who stole the pigeon? And I had no idea. So it was this real awkward, like 10-second moment where they don't hear me any more than I hear myself. And then I'm trying to like encourage them to do so. But I think the great part about it, and obviously the reason I do the work that I do, is the amount of people that have come up to me afterwards and have gone, I had no idea about your story, which absolutely baffles me to this day because I've done so much media on it over the years.
Yeah.
Or so much public speaking. I've written a book. I've done literally, I couldn't tell my story any more than I possibly have. But it's the time that it landed. They're like, I got to do something about my dad or my uncle or my friend or my sister or whatever it was. I'm like, great, that is exactly what keeps me going doing the work that I do because frankly, and I said this to a fellow professional recently that I ran into, used to play footy, he's talking about doing some stuff in this space. And I said, oh, so how's it going? He said, I don't like it. It sort of drains me. And I'm like, then don't do it. This is a lot of long nights and lonely weekends in this game. And you've got to at least want the outcome that you're chasing to be most important, but the feeling in delivering it to actually give you what you need. And that's what speaking does for me. And the funny thing about it is that, so you take it from the top of the top. Like I've done a lot of events with thousands of people.
Yep.
But this one with 65 is obviously the pinnacle. And again, sort of like a real sort of pinch yourself moment because there's so few people who have done it or who can do it. But it's not just that event that gets the feedback. Like I do these tiny little events at different little footy clubs over the years or schools, whatever, and you hear people go, I heard you speak at this place and you've forgotten that you spoke there just about. And my point is that with the work around mental health, and I think this comes back to this whole AFL mental health round conversation, is this is a volume game. This is an awareness game because whilst awareness by itself is not enough, there's not a single thing in your careers, I'm going to just bluntly say, that you guys have gotten better at that you haven't focused on, right? Like I know for a fact Adam focused on kicking left foot scrap kicks or whatever you were doing in the gym in 2014.
You're not wrong.
And I know, Duncan, you worked tirelessly with Rowan Smith around your kicking when you first arrived at the club. It was a big, big focus for you as you try to really sort of get up to the level that you're at now. So if you hadn't focused on these things, none of these things would have improved. So the topic of mental health and the problem, if you want to call it that it is not going to improve unless we really focus on it. And the AFL, in my estimation, is the greatest vehicle to do that. It has the greatest community connection. It is the only sport, in my opinion, that truly engages people in a meaningful way across the country at the scale that it does, right? NRL is great. It's not the same. Cricket's great. It's not the same. All of the other codes are awesome. I love sport. I love team sport in particular. It's not the same as what the AFL can do. And so my position is the AFL is already doing amazing things through the game, but the game is awesome. The game is the best thing that we'll ever do for mental health in the country, and they're aiming for 1 million people to play our great game by the end of 2033. If they just do that, huge pat on the back. But if they do that and they say, we're going to actually put this as a strategic pillar to supporting the communities that are within our remit, mate, the exponential impact across the board.
Yeah.
Like, Josh, you came from the country. Regional country towns are hurting. Like, they really are. The footy and netball club is the only place that's left in most of these places, right? I was in Kyabram last week. Kyabram's 8,000 people. This is a big town. The youth hall's closed. They've got a bocce club. You know how many people are playing bocce that are under the age of 75? Zero, Josh.
Bocce?
Zero.
Wow.
The churches are closed. The tennis clubs are closed. The bowls clubs are closed. The footy club is as full as it ever has been. The netball club is as full as it ever.
That's crazy.
So the work we do with WorkSafe is very much pushing that message into those communities and really reinforcing the need for communities to look after themselves, to support each other in being safe at work, whether that be the mental stuff or the physical stuff. And the AFL has the ultimate opportunity to do that exact same thing, to help people, to help clubs, and to support the growth of our game. And I think it's a pretty easy pitch.
Yeah, geez, you're doing, mate, again, holding on to every word you're saying, Tommy. My follow-up question to that is, I've been thinking about this most of the day because I would love to know what your relationship with AFL is. And the reason I ask that is because I respectfully say this, Tommy, and respectfully say it. You know that you're the number one draft pick, obviously a budding superstar, high potential. We all seen it when you came through the doors, and you obviously had that 2015-16 period where, in my opinion, you were as important to the Bulldogs as anybody in that side. To then retire within, 24 months of winning the flag? Was it 24 months or 12 months with him winning the flag?
Just over. Like 30
what is your relationship with AFL? Because basically off the back of all that, like, are you someone who loves the game, goes out of their way to watch games of footy every week, or are you someone, because you've been in and around the system, you understand how it works, you understand how it affects people and whatnot, there might be a different feeling towards it?
It's a good question, mate. I've answered this in a couple of different ways. I think the simplest way to describe it is, firstly, my career was what I would call unique.
100%.
The best one. So I don't know if you boys have ever watched. Have you seen the show Landman? You seen that show? Jesus. If you boys want to pretend to be cowboys who are actually like oil hunters or whatever, that's the show for you. On Paramount Plus. Like, if you've ever watched Yellowstone, it's the same guy.
Okay.
I love that. Love that.
Billy Bob Joe. It's on Paramount. Massive plug.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, there is a conversation between, I think his name's like Billy Bob Brown. You all know him as an actor. He's like one of the biggest actors. He did Fargo and a few other things. And John Hamm. Do you know John Hamm? You know him?
I need to see these. I need to see the thing.
Just producer, man. Just pick them up for the boys. Anyway, these two are talking to each other, right? And basically what's happened is there's been a big issue at work, and Billy Bob Joe, whatever his name is, who's the fixer, if you will, of this oil company, calls their owner, which is John Hamm. And he basically starts abusing him, and people have died and whatever. And John Hamm goes, John Hamm's name is Monty. Monty goes, hey, our business is one of constant crisis with brief but incredible moments of success. You've had a tough day today, and I understand why you're emotional. And then he says, but don't ever forget who the boss is, basically. It's really good. But my point is, on the first part, is my career was very much felt like at times a case of constant crisis. And I think the real crisis was what I mentioned before, is that I've always felt I was incompatible with footy in the blending of who I was and what I was doing. I really couldn't get that balance right to the day that I retired. But the question typically gets asked in the frame of, hey, do you like the AFL? Well, just to be clear, the AFL is not our game. The AFL is a league that you boys are obviously very well earned to have played in for a long time. It is a professional sporting league with all the bells and whistle challenges and otherwise that exist within the sporting landscape of professional sport. Now, it has about as much in common with the game at Clayabram Footy Club as I do with you guys today, which is different. It's a different thing. And primarily, it's driven by a different set of motivations, incentives, metrics, all of that sort of stuff, right? The primary goal of a community footy club is to support the community, to provide a place for them to go and play footy, to go and play netball, and they do it for the love of the game and the love of their community and the love of the people within it. That's what footy is to me. Footy was always that. I grew up kicking in the mud and dirt and everything else that was coming out of that old tip down at Mullen Reserve at Nord. If you've ever been there, absolute dump up until about 15 years ago. And I loved that from the day I was born, quite literally as a 1 and 2 year old, going down that footy club when my dad was still playing there. And that's been the place that I've lived my life. And what that place gave me was the opportunity to learn incredible skills, to meet incredible people, to make a lot of money. You know, I made a lot of money playing footy. I gave back a lot, but I made a lot whilst I was playing compared to the average person. And it gave me the life that I have today. So there's not a single bit of bitterness that I have towards the game of AFL football or Aussie rules football. What I do have is a very clear understanding that the choice that I made was not between football and life. It was between AFL, the league, and the life that I could live outside of it. And that life, quite frankly, is going very well. I've got a beautiful wife, great home, great group of friends and family. I've got a beautiful 3-year-old at home, got a dog that's absolutely insane. And I've got great people that I now get to associate and get all the frills and bells and whistles of a unique career. I like being a part of the past players, being a life member of the Bulldogs, being at Spud's game. I get the best of all of it. And that's, with a deep and well-reminded respect that there are people who have done a lot more for the game than I have. And I mean that without judging myself. I mean that with absolute respect to what you guys are doing. I might have a unique career and I might be really well known for it, but I haven't accomplished the things on the field that other players have. But I hope to accomplish the things off the field that no one else has done. So,
great answer.
Mate, that is very well said. Hey, curious, are you still having a kick, or you pulled on the boots? I saw something, I swear, not long ago.
Norwood. He played in the Eastern Footy League.
Yeah.
Was it Eastern Footy League? Yeah.
Guys. That was 6 years ago, all right? So I know
was
you
it
guys
6 years ago?
That's crazy.
Yeah, so very quick summation. I finish in May 16, 2019. I go back and play 6 games at Norwood at the end of that year, right? Because I was like, to be honest, Josh, mate, I don't know if you've ever heard this, but so I retired and I gave that great speech. Do you remember the speech?
Yeah.
Where I basically get in there, I'm like, boys, if you think about renegotiating your salary, now would be a great time. Put money back in the salary. It's on tape. This is one of my great. This is the highlight of my career for Deesman. And no one gives me credit. Like, imagine having the guts to get up there and say that. Anyway, so then everyone goes, "Oh, what was it like retiring?" And I'm like, "Mate, the next week the boys went over to Freo and they were getting absolutely smashed. And I was sitting at home with a beer, going, "This is the good life." And I was like, "Yeah, beat them by more. Josh Dunkley can't kick." Whatever. Just joking. I didn't say it. And on
That's
Monday
great.
that week, like 2 days later, I wake up. I'm like, "Oh my god, what am I doing with my life?" Like dead set, because I knew I knew the North Star of what I wanted to do, which is the work that I do today, like in the topic, the mental health topic. But man, I had no idea how I was going to actually do it. And so, as a bridge between my old life and my new one, for one of a less cliche way of describing that, I went back to play local footy because I was like, I need to be back in the community. Now, I learned very quickly those people know me too much, and they're all drunks.
Yeah, they'd be abusing the heck out of you, mate.
No. They wanted to tell me how to live my life, Adam. It was even worse. I could handle the abuse. They were like, I'd been there. I had been at that place since I was born, right? So they'd seen me come all the way through. I'd been the next big thing. I had the jersey on the wall, yada, yada, yada. Anyway, great people. But it was also an hour and a half at least in traffic to get out there. And I'm like, I can't do this. Right? Tuesdays and Thursdays, mate. I just wanted to, like, the Monash is the worst road in Australia.
It is.
So, yeah, you would know. You're from out that way. So then I went back to playing the Ammos, and we had the 2 COVID years. So first year gets cancelled, second year gets sort of half of it. I played 13 games or something like that for St. Kevin's. Great club, great people. But then I start doing all of this work. I have a child, and I'm like, I can't commit to, like, it's still 25 hours a week, boys. It's so much time. You still got to get there. You got to drive there. You got to train. You got to get home. Like, I don't understand, like, the people who do it with really busy careers. And I mean, my career is a bit different because I'm all over the shop. Like, I have a full-time job and I do all this speaking stuff and the ambassador work. So it's a bit hectic. I was like, I just can't commit to that. And I never sort of went back after that. So there was a couple of reasons. One, we obviously had the COVID bit, which really derailed those 2 years. Then I had, and Josh, I had a bad back when I finished the Dogs. I don't know if you know that. I tried to tell the physios. I've told Belly this since. Belly, my leg doesn't work, mate. He goes, it looks fine on the scan. I'm like, you've never listened to scans before, mate. We start now. Anyway, and then I remember I was doing this work safety. You can send this to Belly, seriously. And I'm doing this work safe gig in Clunes, right, which is near Ballarat. It's a beautiful little town. And I go to kick on my left foot. I can't lift my left leg, right? Like, I can run, but my leg, like, if you imagine, like, if 90 degrees is the goal, right, you kick your leg up and it goes up 90 degrees at least. Mine went up 15. You just wouldn't move. And so I had 2 years of that, like, just losing flex in my leg, huge nerve pain down it, and then it got really bad. I ended up in bed for like 2 months. It's horrible. It was right when my daughter was like 6 months old too, so I couldn't put her to bed. And I was like, anyway, I got surgery on it. Had this huge exploded disc that was sitting in my spinal shaft and causing all this grief. Got that fixed up. And I'm like, at this stage of my life, I know I'm 29, so I'm 30 this year. I feel like, especially because I was such a big kid and I was playing so much sport, like, because I played so much basketball as well, I feel like I've got, like, a lot of tread on these tires, basically. So I'm on a big health kick at the moment. I lost a bunch of weight, yada, yada, yada. But I think just from a surgery point of view, like, I've got so many surgeries that are just, I can't get around them. So I'd never say never, but I did say it's very unlikely that I play again.
Mate, I feel like we could talk forever. Well, I certainly could keep asking you questions. We're going forever. So I'm going to finish off with the last question, if that's okay, Josh.
Go for it, mate.
Because I feel like this will be a great answer. I would love to know, so we're in 2025. In 2030, 5 years from now, where will you be in life? I feel like you could be, mate, you could run for Prime Minister.
Oh, mate, for starters, I'm about 1.5 foot too tall to do that, all right? So you can't. Have you seen any of the politicians? They're all short.
Hey, mate, you had a unique career. You could be a unique prime minister, mate.
No.
But where do you see yourself 5 years from now? How do you see what happens over the next 5 years of your life?
It's a good question. The way I've become very wise in my moderate age, Adam. Not true, but yeah, let's pretend. Let's cut that out. Hey, fix it up in post is what I always tell people. I hate it. My mission is essentially to help people, teams, and communities reach their potential. Right? And it sounds a bit interesting to talk about that from a mental health point of view, but in my experience, both in sport and in life, the major inhibiting factor to get people anywhere near their potential is that they just can't get their head straight. They've got issues with stress or anxiety or whatever else is going on, and they just can't get themselves into a frame where they go, I can actually progress with what I want to do in my life. And like anything, there's always the cost of change that people think about. People go, well, it's going to be really expensive or difficult or hard, whatever it is, to do something differently. But there's a cost to staying the same as well, right? Whatever you're not doing is still a decision. Right? And this is something I think was really important during my time retiring. So if I take that mission and I sort of extrapolate it down, at the moment I use 3 major vehicles to implement that mission. I look at Everperform, which is a tech company, which very much is built on a sports model. You would very much understand how it works because it's very based around the lead indicators to actually performing. So, the things that you do in preparation to getting the outcome and the measurement around the outcome as well. And we take on the psychosocial risk stuff, which is big in workplaces at the moment. We take on the team engagement and the performance piece as well. And we're a tech business. I use the opportunity to speak in front of thousands and thousands of people a year to deliver that message as well. And that's the second vehicle. And the third is these great ambassadorships that I have with companies like WorkSafe, the Bulldogs Foundation. I still do work with Movember is a big one, and RecLink Australia, who do some awesome work with sport and mental health prevention and community engagement. And then I have the media stuff that started. So if I just take that as a vehicle at the moment, I think the vehicle will look a little bit different in the next few years. I think there's a couple of major things that will happen. I'm not going to tell you that on here because otherwise it won't be interesting for everyone else. And I've got to figure a few things out and upset a few people along the way because that'll invariably happen. But the vehicle and the mission I'll still be driving in the same direction. It'll just be about what car I'm driving basically. So very excited for the future, mate. Still obviously looking to build a family and live life on that side of things to the fullest as well. So that'll be me, I think.
Excited for you, mate.
Yeah, mate. Thank you. We'll wrap it up there. We'll just thank you for your time and your words too, mate. Some of the stuff you've mentioned is, yes, we had a few laughs, but I'm sure everyone's going to take so much out of it. So thank you for giving up your time. I know you're over in Perth and, wish you all the best too.
Yeah, I appreciate it as well, Tommy. I feel like this will resonate a lot with a lot of people who listen to our podcast, and we have a lot of people who, like to talk about mental health, and I quite often get asked about, probably more so from a footy perspective, but even the way that you can, as you can tell, you're a very smart guy. You can put in really strong words and make sense of a lot of things where it's hard sometimes for people to understand that. And I feel like you're going to really, touch a lot of people who listen to our podcast, and it's greatly appreciated, mate. And the fact that you gave up some time for us, we both really, really appreciate it. So thank you. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Brooks Blooms, your all-in-one landscaping solution.
Brooks Blooms' 3-step landscaping experience offers a seamless journey from design to construction and ongoing care, ensuring your outdoor space thrives year-round.
Visit brooksblooms.com today to embark on your landscaping journey, where every step is a step towards a vibrant and beautiful outdoor entertaining space.